column every week, and I have for about 10 years for statewide newspapers. It used to run in the Minot Daily, and it runs in the Fargo Forum communication kind of newspapers. About all the things that I carry around in my car, just in case, you get stranded. But it's anything from like hairspray to like a saddle, maybe some feed for the chickens that I need to bring home to my sister, and it's like absolutely everything. But when we were growing up, and it's different now, but I guess I just realized down there, we were talking about anniversaries, and my parents just celebrated their 40th, but I sort of forgot that I'm not 38 anymore, so I was like, oh, you guys are celebrating your 40th wedding anniversary, and Dad's like, yeah, we just did this summer. I'm like, I'm 39? What? I just, had to process that whole year. I forgot about there for a second. But when we were learning to drive, it was behind the wheel of the feed pickups, right? And so Dad would just set us in the front, and I was really the kid that really wanted to help on the ranch. And I have an older sister and a younger sister, but I was the one who wanted to, and we are consequently helping take over the place. So I needed to learn the ropes, but the first things first is he would set me in the front we had a Dodge Ram pickup that I remember. Don't ask me what year, Dad'll tell you. But he would just put it in first gear. I could barely reach the pedals. I'd be way up on the, my seat, right on the edge of the seat, just steering it and knowing where the brake was and knowing where we were going and steering the Dodge pickup in a circle for him to scoop out cake out the back for the cows. And that's how I learned to drive. But I also learned to drive in little old Watford City, North Dakota, where there's no stoplights. And so I remember taking my little sister, to the orthodontist in Williston, and by that time I had my own car, and this was a 1982 Ford LTD. She was long, she was rear wheel drive, and the first time I drove it to town, it was sort of icy, and on my way home I went in the ditch 3 or 4 separate times, because no one explained to me how to drive on ice with rear wheel drive. And my friend's grandpa just trailed behind me and pulled me out of the ditch every one of those 3 or 4 times until I got home.
And I never heard about it until like 3 years ago.
Until I was 37. And I took that Ford LTD to bring my little sister to the orthodontist, and I never really learned at that point how to drive in a community that had stoplights, and I was nervous about it. Turning lanes, stoplights, I didn't know how to do it. So I drove her to her orthodontist appointment by way of every parking lot in Williston. So I could avoid her. And lo and behold, I found myself on the road singing for my supper. 3 or 4 years later, 18, 19 years old, I had, Dad and I shared a vehicle, and he sent me off in a Chevy Lumina, really fancy, to Grand Forks, where I drove. That was my home base, and I drove all over the country with my guitar and some songs about North Dakota, and what it was like to live in the middle of nowhere. And then I had to learn to navigate toll booths and 4-lane traffic and all of the things that totally terrified me. Every song I've ever written from then on out, I think, has been sort of created behind the wheel of a car. I really think that momentum and that walking, maybe on the back of a horse, maybe on a hike, maybe behind the wheel of a car, but that motion, that forward motion always kind of gets your ideas moving. And so I remember being in Nebraska singing for college and someone asking me if my accent was Canadian. And, oh no, you're from North Dakota? And yeah, I'm from North Dakota. Do you have running water in North Dakota? And it's like, well, sometimes depending on what the well is doing that day. And then do you drive around in covered wagons in North Dakota was a legit question I got in college from a college student. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I rode my covered wagon all the way here. It was a long journey.